I interrupt this regularly scheduled do nothing all day for something interesting. Cognitive dissonance. Cognitive dissonance. Everybody talks about it. Everybody says people have it. And your irony is showing in your cognitive dissonance is so exemplary or whatever. What is it? Well, here's a perfect example of a congresswoman in the Democratic Party, a member of the new progressive squad, a pretty racist individual to say the least. Among other things, she is a repugnant individual. She's also cognitively dissonant. Here is her saying the filibuster is a tool of obstruction. It does not encourage debate. It does not allow for more voices to be heard. It is for suppression only. End it. Well, she's right. Or she's not right. The original filibuster was meant for a couple reasons. Hastily acting in reactionary situations, for example. People rejecting things that might inadvertently disrupt states and the way they operate. Here she's pointing out the longest filibuster ever held on the Senate floor was 60 days in 1964 to prevent the Civil Rights Act from going forward. So what is wrong with this picture? Can anyone guess? Why is she bringing up the filibuster and needing to end it and bringing up this example of the longest filibuster ever held? What was its purpose? To stop civil rights. Okay, that's good. It was a hasty decision, I guess. So certain people decided that they would debate the idea for 2 months while people marched and shouted and had actual peaceful protests that didn't involve burning down of cities over actual grievances based on race, actual discrimination that actually is being brought back by the very same people that are just like her, the ones that want college segregation. There should be a black-only dormitory because they just can't deal with the white people on campus too long because of irreparable systemic racial harm that exists because of these people existing in a country they were born into. Yeah. That type of thing is cognitive dissonance. So why would I use this to display cognitive dissonance, do you think? Well, it could be a lesson in ignorance, considering it is Rashida Tlaib, and she probably is a very ignorant individual, given what she says and how she says it. I find it interesting that this individual also you find in corporate America, because I've heard the similar stuff from corporate executives, saying that racial injustice therefore act hastily to do stupid things. All the while they're being racist. It's amazing to me. So what in this picture here, what could possibly be wrong with this picture? Well, allow me to explain. In 1964, there was indeed a long filibuster. 14 hours of it was done by a Congressman Byrd, who was a part of the KKK. Now, if you go and fact check this, of course, the fact checkers will say, oh, it's mostly false. It was actually, some people say it's 63 hours, but it was actually 60. And it was these certain people, and they only spoke for this much. And you know what? He was a member of the KKK, but he wasn't a grand wizard. So therefore, it's mostly false because, or partially false because, if we put it partially false instead of saying mostly true, then people believe it's just a bunch of horse shit and pass over it. The details might have been skimped a little bit, but the context is generally true, is what they're trying to say. This is why the Orwellian Ministry of Truth, as I like to call the fact checkers and the media as of late, the Ministry of Truth has decided that this is mostly false. Well, here's the fact. The Democrats of the 1964 Congress are the ones that filibustered against the Civil Rights Act for 2 months. It was the Southern Democrats specifically that were a part, well, not all of them, okay? But there were a majority of the Southern Democrats in particular, House members specifically, and I think 1 or 2 Congress members, that were active members of the KKK. In 1964, when lynchings really did happen. Not this pretend lynching of somebody getting chased down because he's robbing houses. No, it's real lynchings where they just go up in somebody's home, break in, take the guy out, and drag him down the street strapped to the back of a pickup truck. It's a very horrific video, scene, picture. Rather repugnant, disgusting piece of our history. Disgusting. Kind of like the Salem witch trials, which we have to thank for the concept of cancel culture, apparently, because it's pretty much the same thing. But no, where is the irony in this post? Is the same thing that everybody talks about with cognitive dissonance. She's bitching about a tool the Democrats use to fight against civil rights, saying that this thing needs to end. So either she's condemning the Democrats, of which she is a member, or she's standing on principle. What's more likely? She's a social justice warrior Democrat. She is into social justice. She sees everything through a racial lens. If you watched my first installment of the 5 precepts of critical race theory in particular, you'll know that they see everything through a racial lens. They think society in general, Western thought, philosophy, modern philosophy, mind you, not postmodern, the retard philosophy, but real philosophy, is a white supremacist philosophy and movement. Yeah. Because white people thought it, therefore racism. That's pretty much how they think. It's not what was the thought, it's who thought it. So, Rashida Tlaib, Democrats thought it was a good idea to not pass civil rights. But they did find it a really good idea not too long ago, in the 90s in fact, to pass a crime bill that put more blacks in prison than any other bill in its place. You backed a president that did that. So it makes me wonder, do you know what cognitive dissonance is? Do you have any concept of the disconnect and stupidity this tweet, this message from a congresswoman displays? Her own party is the one that did this against civil rights. She's using it as an example of why they should end the filibuster. And to be fair, it's kind of a good example. Civil rights, I mean, it's treat everyone equally. Period. Not equitably, by the way. Not what they tried to institute, where they basically made a welfare state to keep blacks poor. It didn't work, mind you. There's a lot of rich and wealthy black people. They are not oppressed in any way, shape, or form. Unless you want to count Oprah as an oppressed person, or Obama as an oppressed person, or Tlaib as an oppressed person. Congress oppressed while they're oppressing people? Yeah. I believe that's cognitive dissonance is the term, the make of the day. So anyways, I thought this tweet that I saw on Facebook by a group called Being Liberal was irony in the making. I think I'll follow this channel, Being Liberal, a little bit more. because they got some sweet, sweet takes from their favorite progressives. It's pretty amazing. The comment section are full of trolls, and I'm included in that. I really hope I pissed some people off with the comments I made on it, because you gotta be really dumb. I mean, using that example and saying the filibuster must end while being a Democrat, the people that actually filibustered against civil rights, still arguing for racism. Racial policies are racist, in my view. They are discriminating against people based on race. The new definition, you guys wanted to change the definition so bad, is discrimination based on race. So any race, doesn't matter. If you're white and you don't get something, you're being discriminated against. It's now racism. Sucks to be you. Guess what the best thing to do is? Don't play with race. It's irrelevant. Has no value. As long as you keep that in your mind, maybe you'll stop being racist. Until then, keep talking about your white privilege and white supremacy and all that other fun shit, Taleb, and everybody else that believes the same shit. Meanwhile, remember that you guys are voting for people that actually fought against civil rights. Cognitive dissonance. It's an exemplary way to show people how irrational they are being. Willful ignorance is also just as bad. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed this one. Number 2 for today. That's a miracle for me, right? See you next time.